We all know we got Avengers Doomsday coming, and then the year following that, we've got Avengers Secret Wars. Very excited for both of these. I cannot wait to see what they have in store for Secret Wars. Now, one of the big whispers going around, actually some outlets even reporting it, was that Avengers Secret Wars was actually going to get split into two different movies. And we were going to have Secret Wars Part 1, and then sometime in 2028, Secret Wars Part 2. And that's kind of been gaining a lot of traction. A lot of people believing that and thinking that's to the point that some people just now assume that's happening, right? Even though Marvel has never announced such a thing. Now, I've always had two precautions against believing it necessarily. One is that contractually, splitting Secret Wars into two different movies means needing to pay Robert Downey Jr. again, and that's a massive line in the budget. Not to mention scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And I've just always believed they always knew what they were doing with Secret Wars. Not that I was completely against the idea that they might split it. You guys have watched the show. You guys know that I think there's some validity to those reports. But I said it would be kind of difficult from a contractual point of view. The other thing I said on the show the other day, Rob, when we were talking about it, because somebody wrote in and said, well, they have to split Secret Wars because of how big the story is. And Rob, you remember I said on the show, actually, it's not. Like, if you actually look at the story of Secret Wars, you can do that in a 2.5 to 3 hour movie. I would argue that Time Runs Out is actually a larger, like if you were going to split anything in two, it would be Doomsday. But when you really look at it, Secret Wars, the story of Secret Wars doesn't require 2.5 hour movies to tell the story. So anyway, with all that being said, there are now reports coming out that no, Disney was never looking at splitting Secret Wars into two. And it comes to us from our friend and scooper, Jeff Snyder. This comes to us from the folks over at Comic Book Movie Write This. Despite these reports talking about how Secret Wars was going to be split in two, industry insider Jeff Snyder doesn't see it happening. As of right now, Jeff said, Marvel is not planning, all right? Marvel is not planning to split Avengers Secret Wars into two films, he writes this in his week's newsletter. That may have been mentioned by somebody somewhere along the chain of power, but it's not being seriously discussed in Burbank. That's where Disney's offices are. Due to the difficulty of scheduling, the enormous cast, not to mention the prospect of having to pay Robert Downey Jr. even more enormous salary. Now, I should say that I was actually told, I never brought it up on the show because it's not somebody who would definitively know, but I was told by somebody a few weeks ago that, to the best of their knowledge, there hadn't been any serious discussions about splitting it in two. I didn't take it very seriously or not seriously because, again, I don't know that this person who is on the inside necessarily was in a position that they would know for sure. So I didn't say anything. But I got to tell you, Rob, I actually believe what Jeff is writing. I think we are getting really far into the game right now. Again, the complexities of having to restructure all the contracts is a big thing. I think they already have their 2028 planned out. And for you to now suddenly split Secret Wars into two movies and drop that somewhere near the end of 2028, that completely screws with your release plans for everything else that was supposed to come in 2028. And then lastly, of course, the whole notion of that they could run the risk of making the same mistake that they made with The Hobbit. The Hobbit should have been one movie. At the very most, maybe you could have done it as two. You certainly shouldn't have done it as three. And I think Secret Wars is kind of a movie that can be told perfectly well in a 2.5 to 3 hour movie. So while I have kind of bought into the idea that they could be splitting this in two, I really do believe Jeff's report here when he says they're not doing it. And I'm now fully expecting that we're not going to get a Secret Wars Part 2. We're going to get Secret Wars, and then Marvel's going to continue on with the rest of their plan. Anyway, Rob, you hear this report. Do you believe it, not believe it, right move, wrong move? How do you see it?
Well, I believe it. I believe right now that the movies they're planning on making one movie, because it's one movie. As far as I know, it's hasn't even gone before the cameras yet. So
Right.
I think they know, obviously, that they moved forward with a script. Like everybody knows, the script, a script is usually the common wisdom, the conventional wisdom is that 1 page equals 1 minute of screen time.
Right.
And normally a screenplay, when you look at a script, you don't even want to see the scripts that usually 90 pages to 110 pages is like the sweet spot. You get to 120 pages, your script better be damn good. Well, the Doomsday script was a lot bigger than that. And they could have stretched it further. They could have broken that movie into two movies, but it's, there's a lot of story to tell in Secret Wars. And I don't have any idea how they're going to do that or what they're going to do or how it's going to look. And I believe that the potential could be there because they weren't going to make 3 Hobbit movies. The third movie was born out of the production. Peter Jackson thought that they had more story, so they added a third movie to it. But like you pointed out, there are so many actors in this film that, look, if they were going to make 2 movies, they're going to shoot it all at once anyway. It's going to be the same production. So maybe they could get away with it knowing they're going to break it into 2 movies. But what does that deal look like? If they have to pay everybody twice, the whole point of breaking them into 2 movies is to amortize the cost. That's why they made Lord of the Rings at first all at once, so they could amortize the cost. So they wouldn't have to start and stop and start and stop. And it would be to save money, but that would be the only thing that I could possibly imagine. I don't even know what that would look like in terms of if they go in knowing let's just say they have a 200-page script and they know that they're going to break it into, not that anybody should greenlight a 200-page script, but let's say they did. They would know that they were going to break the movie into 2 movies, and the actors would know that going in. They would plan on it. So how do you structure that deal? They're not starting another movie. They're just going to break it into 2 films. I don't even know what a deal like that would look like. Does Robert Downey Jr. get paid twice? I don't know.
Oh, 100% he would. You can't, because if not, they would. Every court in the world. First of all, the actors would sue the shit out of the studio, and every court in the world would find in favor of the actors.
Right, but they would have to. What I mean is, they would know going in. They would know going in that the movie is going to be, that they're going to split it into 2. So whatever deals that they would have in place, I think would account for that.
But then in that case, you're not. If you know going in before day 1 of shooting, then you're not splitting a movie in 2. You're shooting 2 movies. Right. I mean, right. I know that's semantics, yeah, but it's important semantics, right? Because then it never was 1 movie. It was always 2 separate movies. If like right from the beginning of the contracts, it was for 2 separate movies. And I don't think they've done that. And then it brings up the other kind of logistical nightmare part. Secret Wars is so important that you can't put out any other movies until Secret Wars is done.
Right. Yep.
So that means if you suddenly have Secret Wars Part 1 in December of 2027 and then Secret Wars Part 2 in December of 2028, you can't release a damn thing in between that, because it would just make no sense, because every movie that would be coming out in 2028, X-Men and what have you, it assumes that the audience has already seen the conclusion of the Secret Wars storyline.
Yeah.
And just its existence would spoil whatever was going to come in Secret Wars Part 2.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
It's tricky. Again, neither Rob or I are sitting here telling you definitively, because Kevin Feige hasn't spoken to it. But then again, Kevin Feige never said they were going to do Secret Wars as 2 films.
No.
So that was never a fact anyway. But we're not sitting here telling you it's a fact that they're not. It just seems to me to make sense that it's not what they're doing. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Factor. Cold days, packed schedules, and let's be honest, when February hits, staying on track with eating well gets tough. And that's why I love Factor. Factor makes eating healthy deliciously easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, so you can eat well without the planning, shopping, or cooking. One of my main go-to meals lately is their high protein options. You're getting quality functional ingredients like lean proteins, colorful vegetables, whole foods, and healthy fats. Plus, they have over 100 rotating weekly meals, including Calorie Smart, Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, ready-to-eat salads, and even their new Muscle Pro collection for strength and recovery. Everything arrives fresh, never frozen, and is ready in about 2 minutes. All that and more is why I highly recommend Factor. Head to factormeals.com/Campea50off and use the code Campea50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active.
Yeah, and I don't even know. I mean, I haven't seen a script for Secret Wars or something like that. I know nothing. I know nothing about what they're going to do. The only thing I can tell you is that I recently reread the omnibuses, the Secret Wars and the Secret Wars Battle World omnibuses. That's it. That's what I know. In terms of Secret Wars, I need to get omnibus number 2 of Battle World. But yeah.
By the way, somebody in the live chat is just saying something very wrong. David is saying they did it with Endgame and Ant-Man. Not really, though, because the time frame was so isolated. The events of Infinity War and Endgame left room that you could tell a story isolated from what was going on in Infinity War and Endgame, and then have it catch up to the end of Infinity War when everybody gets snapped away.
Yeah.
That is not the case with Doomsday and Secret Wars. Like, you don't have Doomsday happen, and meanwhile, everywhere else in the world, everything's just going on as normal. And then a year later, the events of Secret Wars happen. If you know the story of Time Runs Out and Secret Wars, there's no room in there for creating something. And forget Doomsday to Secret Wars. Once you're in Secret Wars, if you had a Secret Wars Part 1 and Part 2,
oh yeah, you can't.
You cannot compare this to the scenario of Ant-Man with Infinity War. You can't even compare it. They're two radically different things.
Yeah.
I get why your head goes there. I totally understand the thought process, but it's a radically different scenario, Rob.
I mean, Doomsday is very apt in terms of its title.
Yeah.
and so, I mean, if you follow the comics, the multiverse ends and then Doom recreates one world, his battle world, and all of the heroes are on this crazy patchwork of a world. It's not, I mean, I want to know how are they going to, I want to know how they're going to portray that. Like, I have no idea how are there going to be like, is the rest of the world going to exist? Or is it just going to be like, I mean, Ian McKellen talked about how he destroyed New Jersey. Like, in Secret Wars, I have no idea. Like, is the rest of the world, like, are there going to be 8 billion Earth people on Battle World? Like, I don't know. But I mean, because what's going to happen with the rest of the world? Like,
now, before anybody starts yelling, but Rob, in Secret Wars, remember, Marvel has never followed beat for beat what happens in its corresponding comic book story. They base their movies on existing comic book stories, but they don't follow it directly. It's really more inspired by and influenced by, and you'll get a lot of the story beats, but they'll also change things. So Rob's right. I mean, we could have 8 billion people living in this world, or we could have 8,000 people living in this world. We simply don't know at this point.
And also, John, the question that I want to ask is, okay, you move into the X-Men universe. We know they're doing X-Men next. After Thanos snapped away half the people for 5 years, and then whatever happens with the collapse of the multiverse and the end of Secret Wars, is the entire rest of the world, is the human population of Earth as it moves forward into X-Men, are we going to be the most traumatized people in the history of creation? After, I mean, it's like, how do you go through Thanos snapping half the people in the world away to the end of the multiverse, Doctor Doom creating Battle World, then they have Secret Wars? How does the rest of the world move forward after all of that? I'm looking forward to seeing how they address those issues, because I don't even think they did a good job addressing the post snap world. And what are they going to do when these two events are what is humanity, what is the universe going to do?
Dude, they've barely mentioned the fact that a giant space god appeared over the earth and announced to its inhabitants, I will return for judgment. And other than some little headline article in a newspaper, I mean, that's really basically never even been addressed. You're right.
No.
There is no more traumatized people than the inhabitants of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Earth. There is simply not. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Now, according to some stuff coming out, that they're not looking at splitting Secret Wars into two films. By the way, it's important to note, nobody ever said they were. Nobody official. None of the directors, not Kevin Feige, not the studio, nobody ever remotely suggested they were going to be splitting it. But a lot of us just kind of assumed that they were. And there were some reports claiming that. But now there's some counter reports coming out saying, no, they're not looking at doing that. Do you believe ultimately they will split Secret Wars into two films? Or do you believe they will do it as one big movie? Whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show Podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.